So today we are going to talk about ancient Egypt, the place that's known for pharaohs and mummies and pyramids and the Sphinx and all that stuff that I believe you studied in 3rd or 4th grade. So first thing you need to do is pause the video and take out this paper. So ancient Egypt is usually divided up into 3 time periods: the Old Kingdom, the Middle Kingdom, and the New Kingdom. So the Old Kingdom is when we see the development of their religion. They had what's called a theocracy, where the government and the religion are run by the same people. So in this case, it's run by a king. The king is considered to be a god. The king is who we call Pharaoh. That's the Egyptian name for a king. And then the king has somebody called a vizier, who is really the one who runs the government, but the king is in charge. 2 things that you need to associate with Egypt are, just like Persia, they have a bureaucracy. So that's government officials who get a job. So if you're good at a specific thing, the government hires you to only do that thing. The king doesn't have enough time to do every single job, so he gets people he knows are good at that type of thing to do the job. And that is a bureaucracy. Also mummies, which I think you've probably seen before and we'll look again at later. Mummies were preserved bodies, so that they believed when they died, they came back and re-inhabited that body, so they wanted their bodies to be in good shape, good condition for after they died and went to the afterlife. So that's the Old Kingdom. The Middle Kingdom is known for moving the capital city, but more importantly, they're going to be invaded by a group called the Hyksos, which means foreigners. They are from Asia, north of Mesopotamia, which is very close to Persia, actually. But most importantly, they are going to bring with them a new metal called bronze, which is copper and tin mixed together. It's the strongest metal that anybody's using at this time, so we are going to call the time period the Bronze Age. But in addition to having better weapons, they also have horses and chariots, which is a cart you put on the back of the horse. So they are going to be able to move faster, plus they have better weapons, so the fighting is going to be really short when they meet the Egyptians. And they're going to take over Egypt. They rule for 100 to 200 years before the Egyptians are actually able to kick out these foreign rulers. Which leads us to the New Kingdom. And this is what you picture when you think of ancient Egypt. So, the kings are going to become known as pharaohs after this. This is when all of the stuff that you've ever seen in class was built. We have a guy named Ramses the Great, who's considered the best pharaoh of all time, Ramses II. And so he is going to be there when like the biggest pyramids are built. And then once he dies, it takes a few hundred years and they just gradually get weaker and weaker and weaker and weaker and weaker. And about 1,000 years later, they're going to be conquered by the Greeks, which we will study in December. Now, the things ancient Egypt leaves behind are a polytheistic religion. The head of the religion is, well, these are the 3 main gods. We have Horus, who's a sky god. We have Ra, which is sort of the head god, or the sun god. And then Osiris, who's the god of the afterlife. So here's Horus, here is Ra, and here is Osiris. Now they have a complicated religion. Because it's a theocracy and they believe the pharaoh is a god, they believe while the pharaoh is alive, he is Horus. And then when he dies, he is Osiris. Also during this time period, they developed their writing system, which is hieroglyphics, which uses the pictures. And as you know, the Phoenicians are going to start using an alphabet that everyone will start to learn and use. But until then, when you have these complicated picture alphabets, you need somebody called a scribe who knows how to write and draw these pictures well. Now, we didn't know how to read hieroglyphics until about 1800. When Napoleon, the great French general, is taking over the world, they're going to take over Egypt. And one of the people, bureaucrats, who is working for Napoleon, is going to discover this stone, called the Rosetta Stone, which has hieroglyphics, plus it has ancient Greek and a more modern version of Greek, so it all says the same thing. And the way they figured that out is they knew how to read the two types of Greek, and then once they knew that they were the same, they knew that the hieroglyphics was the same. So they were able to figure out the hieroglyphic alphabet that way. So the Rosetta Stone is what lets us figure out how to read hieroglyphics. So for thousands of years, people knew this was their language, but they did not know how to read it. So good job, French guys. So they're going to leave behind a long list of achievements. The first is the hieroglyphics that you saw. The next is architecture. They build these gigantic pyramids, which we will see. And they're going to rule for a long, long time. And their type of, when you have one family who rules for a long, long time, it's called a dynasty. D-Y-N-A-S-T-Y. And then if you look at your notes, there's a couple other really impressive things to remember that are not going to be on the SOL. They come up with a 365-day calendar, so it's as accurate as the one we use. They have incredible medical knowledge. They figured out how to drain all the body fluids out of those bodies so they would not rot when they made mummies. They're going to create paper called papyrus, which is made from reeds that grow in the Nile. And they also have this really advanced knowledge of astronomy, which allows them to line up those pyramids with different things that they are interested in. So those are the basic things about Egypt. Next in class, we're going to look at some more in-depth stuff about Egypt. And Egypt is the last river valley civilization we are going to study before your test. Then we're going to do India and China separately.